Good evening, everyone. Before we start our webinar for today, I would request you all to mute yourselves as well as turn off your audios as your videos as this session is being recorded. And in case you want to ask any questions, please feel free to write down your queries in the chat box. We will try our best to answer them. And let us start with our webinar now. Antahakaran Group is a non-profit group created to spread awareness about mental health, and this is a start. This is a startup by students. We recognize the taboo around mental health issues amongst people of all age groups and the need for there to be awareness, knowledge, and education about these issues. With this mind, the Antahakaran Group was created. Today, we have organized a webinar on mental health and toxic masculinity. We are joined by our two esteemed speakers, Prakriti Pandya and Riya Pawar. Prakriti Pandya is a family and development counseling psychologist. She has done her master's in clinical psychology from Ambedkar University, Delhi. She has a diploma in counseling and family therapy. She earned her certification from University of Manchester for conducting psychometric tests. She has also certified in data protection and research integrity. She is currently working as research associate at Sanghat and a consultant at the Shelter Progator India Charitable Trust, counseling psychologist at Dwarka Psychiatric Clinic, and also is currently working on a mental health and legal profession project with Niti Manthan in the capacity of a project lead. She has worked as a counselor at Salam Balak Trust and project coordinator at Mental Health Foundation. Now moving on to Ms. Riya Pawar, who is our second speaker for today. Riya Pawar is a counseling psychologist. She has done her master's degree in psychology, psycho-social clinical studies from Ambedkar University, Delhi. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology from Delhi University. Riya has been dedicatedly working with varied population from inmates of Tihar to adolescents. Her area of interest is family dynamics and young adults. She is keen to understand the dynamics among twin siblings and their bond. She strives towards putting more smiles out there. She is currently working on a project with Niti Manthan in the capacity of the project director. The project aims at working with legal professionals to provide them mental health aid first by understanding the issues and suggesting structural changes to curb the distance. Now, we will begin with the webinar as we have done with the basic introduction. So the webinar will go as such. First of all, we will put on some questions before our speakers to answer, which we think are major for today's topic. And then we will proceed to answer the questions asked by the people who have joined us. The first question is, starting with the issue itself, that what do you people have to say about toxic masculinity and how is it related to mental health?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Prakriti, as Nomita rightly introduced me. So, before moving on to the issue of toxic masculinity and mental health, let me discuss what is masculinity. So, I think it is important that we discuss the concept of masculinity in general because unless we understand what is masculinity, we can't really uh, understand what is toxic masculinity and how it relates to mental health. So, giving a definition of how we see masculinity. Masculinity is a set of attributes, behaviors, and rules associated with boys and men's behavior. In societal understanding, masculinity is defined as strength, courage, independence, leadership, assertiveness, dominance, self reliance. And it is largely a social construct. These are so usually we see these things from a very positive side, But with positivity, with cons, there is always this negative side as well. And today in this webinar, we will be focusing on that more, and Ria will shed more light on that. But before that, it's also important. Like, I'll pose this question to the audience. If I ask all of you, if I just say men, and what kind of image and what kind of attributes do you associate with men? Usually, in my experience, you all can write that in the chat box. So in my experience, it has been that men are assertive, dominant, protective as well, and they are very good with emotions. They are not very emotional. They can control their emotions. Usually, anger has been emotion that is associated with men. But we need to understand and realize these things, that masculinity and even femininity are social construct, as these behaviors or attributes are not simple products of genetic coding or biological disposition. These are these are learned from our interaction with the society and other interactions that we have. And we need to realize this one thing, that being an extreme of any place, being extremely feminine, being extremely masculine, it will have consequences. Because, for example, I use this example when I'm talking to children and work with them. I say that if you eat a lot of fruits, it's not going to be good. If you eat a lot of vegetables, it's not going to be good. Eating anything of too much will be not good for you. So same goes for our brain, our mind, our being. That being too much of anything, being on the extreme spectrum of anything will not be good. So, and there is a term called androgynous, which means that being balanced, being both, having both masculine and feminine attributes. So we should probably strive for that more. And as rightly said, that masculinity is defined by these terms, these set of terms, and the negative or the toxic side of masculinity, probably Ria can shed more light over that.
Hi everyone, my name is Ria. So I'll be the second speaker of this evening. So as Prakriti has shed light on the concept of masculinity. So if you like to understand the concept of toxic masculinity, initially the concept appears to be very complex. However, it can be understood easily as masculinity refers to the set of norms, attributes, and behavior that are often associated with men. Toxic masculinity can be seen as the subset of these. Here, these attributes, we are referring to them as toxic because the prevalence of these attributes in long term can be harmful both for the person themselves who is possessing them as well as to the society as a whole. So while there's one thing we need to make it clear before we begin the topic is that while we are associating the term word toxic along with the gender term masculinity, here we are in no way trying to attempt to demonize manhood or male population. Rather, we are trying to be compassionate and understanding of their issues. We are not criticizing men, but we are calling out on the unfair standards imposed on either of the genders. So patriarchy have hurt both men as well as women. So it might be very difficult for us to process that how patriarchy is harmful for men themselves, because from years we women know that how it is harmful for us, how it has limited us. But we also need to recognize that it is also harmful for men because it forces them and mold them into a particular set of norms. It is important to understand that the term does not express that there is something wrong with the idea of being men. Rather, what we like to shed light upon is that there is something fundamentally wrong with this particular version of being a man. What happens via toxic masculinity is that it can often lead to the action that prevent men from displaying their emotion. The only emotion that is allowed to express is anger. Anger is an acceptable aspect of being for men, but anger also means that they don't have to verbally communicate their conflict. Rather, they can just communicate themselves via their actions. All of us are pretty much aware of this term, of these words, that whenever a boy cries, that boys don't cry. It has been so prevalent that number of ads have taken it. So boys don't cry. Why don't they cry? They're repeatedly told that no, you can't cry, you can't cry. So what happened at that, when these words are used with a young boy, At a young age, the language to process and a tool of expression is often taken away from them. So while they can see that the girls and women around themselves has this freedom to express themselves, but they are not allowed to express, so it becomes difficult for them to process whatever the turmoil is going inside of them. This lack of processing of emotion can find different outlets, such as it can find outlet through violence, through fights, through abuse, through dominance. They can engage in alcohol or substance abuse, or rather they just choose to quietly suffer in silence. It can also leave some residual anger towards the other gender, because since the beginning they have the ability to express themselves, their needs are also comforted. However, men are just said that no, you can't cry, and that's it. So ultimately, in long term, it can have some mental health issue also with the associated with this toxic masculinity. I feel that Prakriti can elaborate on this further.
Yeah, so very nicely put by Ria that how what is toxic masculinity. Yeah. And so she pointed out how in the existing concept of masculinity, what aspects are toxic, right? And uh, in my experience, I've seen that a lot of boys, usually adolescent boys, have started experiencing, and men have experienced so many things, especially when it comes to mental health issues. Like some of them have problem with dating and interpersonal intimacy. Some of them also have greater level of depression and anxiety. They have problems with interpersonal violence, like they can be uh, can be subject, or they can induce violence, can be sexual violence, can be spouse abuse. And it also, like, even mental health implications can have physical implications as well, physical health implications, such as people who show a lot of anger, they also suffer from blood pressure issues, high blood pressure. Some suffer from diabetes, and boys also experience a lot of greater overall level of psychological distress. And it is not usually said, but they can also have eating disorders, because you're also wanting them to be a particular set of being, like how are supposed to have these six pack or look certain way. So even they have this kind of pressure on them. Yeah. And feeling sad or angry inside, but showing it in the form of rage and anger to appear, as Dia mentioned, that the language to communicate, to express, is taken away from them. So what will happen if that language is taken away? Then if I'm feeling my true self is feeling sad or is feeling emotional, that will be communicated or will be shown through a mask, the mask of anger or rage. And then it also leads to increased level of irritability, lack of concentration, and sometimes also self medication with street drugs in substance abuse. So for example, you all must have heard this line: a guy had a breakup or lost a job or anything, let's go and drink. So this, what are we trying to say, that this is the way you let out all your emotions. To let out your emotions, you have to drink. To be vulnerable, you have to drink or do something that is that, so that you are not that conscious when you're speaking. And this so many issues, when men have so much pressure, it can also lead to societal thoughts at time. So as a mental health professional, I'm quite concerned, and I recognize this thing that we should talk about toxic masculinity and mental health. Like, it is affecting men in so many forms. And as we all realize, we do not live in vacuum, especially when we should realize this at this point in COVID-19 time, that we do not live in vacuum. One affects the other. So if men are getting affected, it is a circular world, and if men are affected, women will be affected, families will be affected, overall the next generation of children will be affected. So if one part of our society is getting affected, all of us will be affected. And that's why it is needed that we talk about this. And so to since we do not have any male on the panel, and we recognize that, so we have taken this audio. This is a poem by Parivartan Pandya, and Ria will play that poem. It will help you connect more with what you are trying to say and he sums up the ability that poets have, that they can sum up a 15-minute discussion into 1 minute. That's incredible. So yeah, here to yeah, you can play that.
रात शांत थी पर दिल में तूफान था, रात शांत थी पर दिल में तूफान था, दर्द अपना कहा नहीं किसी से क्योंकि मर्दानगी का गुमान था। शब्द मेरे हलक तक आए थे, शब्द मेरे हलक तक आए थे, पर जुबान पे समाज का ताला था, मैं भी कभी भोला भाला था। रोने और बोलने से ही मुझे कर दिया था तुमने मना, रोने और बोलने से ही तुमने कर दिया था मुझे मना, आज मैं हो चुका हूँ अपनी इंसानियत से फना। मेरी सिस्कियां ही तुम्हारे लिए मजाक थी, मेरी सिस्कियां ही तुम्हारे लिए मजाक थी, मुझे दे दो इस मर्दानगी के चोगे से आजादी, इसीलिए वो रात शांत थी।
Yeah, so for people who can't understand Hindi, so Mardangi ka choga is that the
So as
masculine, yeah, the masculine veil that we all men have. So, and anyone who is finding it difficult to understand the poem can connect with us later on. And people who were able to understand it can understand the essence of what the poem was talking about. And it rightly talks about toxic masculinity and how it has taken away the innocence of the people. And rest, you all can interpret it in your own terms.
So, by that beautiful poem, one can infer that how society has molded the person. The person who was saying the poem, he clearly established that how it is through others he was molded. So, it is the masculinity and femininity, as we have understood, is a huge social construct. So, there are a number of and reinforcing these norms. So via that we somehow began to conform to these norms in long terms.
Thank you so much, Prakriti and Riya, for giving the answer to our first question. I would now like to bring before you our second question, which is that how does toxic masculinity come into being, and what are the factors which keep it in existence and which maintain and keep giving life to it?
So as we concluded the earlier poem, that how it is the societal aspect, how it is our environment that's molded us. So there are a number of factors that can play a crucial role in reinforcing these norms. So one of them is the power dynamics that often exist between the male and the female. The power dynamics between males and females are skewed in the direction of males, especially if we see the scenario in our own country. This skewness can be understood by the prevalent notion, the desirability that the people have for having a son. This desirability has somehow turned into necessity. And the major reason behind this is the cultural norms that are associated with it. That the son is the sole bearer, that after the death of the father or after the death of the mother, he'll be the responsible. There are certain rituals that are associated with the son which are completed, only then the person will get moksha. So this is one of the cultural norm that has been strongly associated, and people tend to have more desire for the son than for the daughter. And the second reason is that the someone who will carry forward their name. So this is one of the major desire. This is the major reason why men is preferred in a society than women. As a result of it, what happened that the woman who fails to give birth to a son is often seen as someone who has failed as a woman, who has failed as a mother. She's as the result of which the woman as well as the daughter she gave birth to have become the target of abuse and violence. Not only specific to India, if we see in the Western cultures, it has there have been number of series. There were this introduction that there's like girls with daddy issues. So what happened that often, not exactly in this scenario, but often what happened is that when the father, who has the desirability of a son, gets a daughter, he begins to treat her like a boy. They will engage them into sports, they'll engage them into activity that are particularly associated with men. But what happened that once the girl reached puberty, once she is visibly looking like a woman, father suddenly try to begin to draw back. They begin to maintain a distance between themselves and the girl. So what happened is that the girl began to feel abandoned because the bond suddenly changes as she grew up. So this is also one of the issue that tends to create a mental health problem among the women in West. It is significant that to understand that it is not only men who blindly follow all these practices to establish dominance, but what happens is that there are certain time there are few men who understand this power dynamics, who understand that these traits are toxic, who understand that they need to move forward, they need to be respectful, they need not to be in those specific norms that have been ascribed to them. But what happened to them that in under the peer pressure, especially the young boys, they often get tries to conform to the norms, because otherwise they'll be targeted. They'll be say that if you a boy refuse to objectify a woman, if a boy refuse to say anything wrong, if a boy is warm towards, if a boy hugs another boy, there's a concept of homosexuality that has been strongly associated with it. So to prevent themselves from such stigmatization, boys often try to stay limited to the norms that has been ascribed to them. The ideals, morals, or attributes that are often associated with men have a strong implication of the kind of upbringing that they are receiving, the type of environment that they are surrounded by, how they see in their family, how parents treat each other. So I believe that this upbringing, Prakriti can explain better as she has worked with families. So I'll ask her to elaborate on this.
So yeah, see, like Ria, like I've written in a really good point that she pointed out how in India the sons are desirable and the impact it has on the mental health of the women and sons as well. Like sometimes they are brothers who can recognize uh, that in social situation when people are meeting relatives they are given more preference over their daughter, their sisters, and they realize that, and they also feel bad since they are close to their sisters and there is attachment. So brothers also feel bad, sometimes even husbands feel bad, like people who are sensitive will feel bad towards the other gender, and it does affect them. And she also pointed out about homosexuality, how the peer relation which were like normal and natural, like all must have heard that all the girls go to washroom together, like this is quite common. But guys do not do that, and guys are quite aloof, like this there's a kind of isolation that gets into them since they can't hug each other, they can't. And through physical touch our oxytocin level actually increases, and that is good for our overall development and health. That those are happy hormones. And bringing in this point of upbringing, so there has been this constant debate about nature and nurture. Does our genes affect us or our socialization affect us, the environment? So it is believed that both of them, obviously both of them have their due part in making us who we are. But when we are talking about masculinity as a concept, there is more emphasis on the nurture part, the part of environment, since we have genetics and all of us, the difference that both men and women have is mostly the hormonal difference, and they after a point they are also subsided, they can be worked through. But when it comes to society, like the kind of role models we see in our own family, if does our dad ever get emotional, or is dad aloof or isolated? So these kind of role models, when we see it occurring again and again in our everyday life, it affects us. It because we do not really realize, but you always want to be like our parents in some way, be like them or totally be opposite of them. That is how we want our identity to be. And since we are seeing this identity that our father or our mothers are of certain way, so this really affects our conceptualization of men or women, right? And So this is one thing. And also there's a way this socialization happens, like the way men and like boys and young girls are dressed up, the kind of toys they have, the kind of language that is used in families, and the and how family members treat them, right? So the kind of things we hear in a, for example, boys from a very young age hear about that you have to establish yourself, you have to work on your identity, whereas females have to, like, I'm giving a very generalized example, that females are told that you have to get married and you have to start working on these things like domestic work and all that. So these things stay with you, because what you have heard, you can't really unheard it, and it stays with you in your unconscious mind and it plays out in different ways. So yeah, these are the ways upbringing and socialization affects us in different scenarios.
So beside
And
we say upbringing, yeah, if you're gonna continue.
yeah. So I was also saying about the social construction that people have, like how things are socially constructed, the language that we use. For example, there is no language, but I will say, especially now, a lot of women have these PCOD, PCOS, and different issues, but there is no language when it comes to facial hair that women have, and there's language when it comes to facial hair that men have. And there's also like small things where demarcations are made, and these are so much intrigued, it's like the fiber of these are so much intrigued in our body and our being, that at times we as humans fail to understand that, and it affects both the genders equally, because anyone who will have sympathy for, as I said, this is circular. If men are affected, women are affected. If women are affected, men are affected. So this socially construction we need to, like, yeah, at the end we will discuss about how we can tackle it. So probably Ria can shed more light if she wants to.
Yeah, I would like
Ria, you froze. Your
I think
video.
there's some, yeah, I think there's some network issue. So uh, let me go on and let me share the things that I was sharing and she can add on. So next thing we wanted to discuss was social expectations. So Ria can can add on what she wants to. I want to talk about the relationship expectation that people have. And I'm particularly talking about men. So a lot of men are quite insecure when it comes to their sexual performance, and this is not talked about at all. Like there was this study that I was part of, and a lot of men confirm that they have this issue when it comes to sexual performance. Not that they have any issue, it's just something that they are quite insecure about, and they don't really have any resort to talk about this. And this that's why the term sexual performance anxiety actually exist, and it affects their self confidence a lot. That's why we can see that a lot of men talk about sexuality a lot, like even if we refer to the case that happened, the locker room case. So men talking about sexual behavior, it's kind of a compensation that they are doing for the emotional bit that they are not experiencing or they can't talk about. That's a overcompensation. And in my experience, when I have sessions with men, I've really realized that this thing about sexual performance, it generates a lot of fear and anxiety provoking thoughts in them. Like they're quite anxious, what if their partner doesn't like them, or what if they are not good enough, and in a way they overcompensate. And also talking about our education system itself, it also helps keep this thing running. I want to ask all of you, uh, when did you all get to know the name of your private parts, like the scientific name of your private part, vagina, penis? When did we all get to know the names? It was around 8th class when I can tell about myself. It was 8th class when I got to know there was this reproduction chapter in which I got to know about the names. And un- until then, what all names did we know? The names that we knew were mostly abusive languages, or we had no idea that these parts should be referred to or should be talked about. That's why it is important. I had this discussion with a German couple and a Canadian couple that when are these names introduced in your country? They said it is just like the way eyes, nose are introduced, these private parts are also introduced. So our education system is also in a way inculcating this curiosity around our own sexuality, and there's a taboo about understanding sexuality, because I personally and as a professional do not understand why does a person has to wait till 8th class or 6th class to know the name of their private parts. It's a part of their body, and if they have to wait so much, it's obvious that it will actually lead to a taboo or a curiosity, and which can be seen in a lot of men. That's why they also go towards pornography, and even in females they go through that. So yeah, I covered about relationship expectation and education system. If you want to add something, you can go on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's the problem, the internet connectivity. So yeah, the point that I wanted to add was that how media around us, social media around us, play a very significant role in developing our own ideas about how we are supposed to be. So here the focus need to be bring to be supposed to be. We are supposed to be only one version of men, only one version of women. So there's no flexibility. For example, it has been established that in order to be in order to seem strong, you need to be muscular. In order to be strong, you need to have a height. In order to be strong, you need to be physically able to lift heavy things. And why is that? For example, in the earlier times, Amitabh Bachchan, the angry young man, was seen as the most desirable person. But why an angry man? Why we are focusing on someone who's angry? Because anger is usually a toxic thing, and many of the people or the generation at that time was focusing towards being that person. And even to the women, they wanted to be like Kareena Kapoor size zero. Why is that? Because if we go through the health wise, it has many health disadvantage, and not everybody's body can actually undergo through that. So these extremities that has been developed is one of the major reason that limit us in those particular roles. So we are on the different scenario, the merging those boundaries, coming to the point where we can communicate, we can accept each other now. Who said that a woman, for example, a simple thing that when a man get angry at a workplace, it is seen as a sign of passion. Whereas if a woman gets angry at a workplace, it is seen that she is being emotional. It is simply asked her that is it one of those days, and why is that? Because even the emotions that we humans are assigned are different. We can't actually follow emotion according to our own will, and that brings me on my second point, that the environment around us is created in such a way that we are still limited to our own roles. For example, women are encouraged to pick up a job that supposedly allow them to pursue their career also, but at the same time they'll be able to take care of the family. For example, since I have taken psychology, number of time I have been expected that I should become a professor. Why a professor? Because then I can go to my college, I can attend my work till 5, and then I can come and take care of my home. But nobody actually talk about the stress the professors go. Professors don't just come and teach and go. They study a lot more. They have to teach the future generation. It is actually one of the most tense job like any other job. So it is not limited to that. But according to your gender, you're supposed to be good at only one particular job, and if you go to the other job, the environment are so different that you'll find it difficult to exist there. For example, I'll take the example of this series called Four More Shots. So in this, the woman was a lawyer. She was good at her work. So as soon as her boss changed, he began to give the high profile case, most stressful case, to the men. So when the woman asked, he was like, you should go and take care of the family. And she said that, okay, I'm taking care of my family, and I don't have any issue with that. I can take care of this business. He was like, if you can't even take care of your marriage, how are you supposed to take care of the business? So where women's personal life is brought into that. Whereas men find the environment, since it is made according to their convenience, they find this environment to dominate women a lot more. So here the roles often change. For example, as a chef, women, if you see women, she's seen as the nurturer as home. But even if the same task is assigned to workplace, then it is a stressful job, then it is a man's job. So work environment is shaped in a way that it is more convenient for man. It is more convenient for them to establish their superiority. And this is one of the toxic region, because if they are not able to succeed even in those areas, then they feel incompetent, and the frustration that generated ultimately harm them, as well as it comes out in the form of violence on the women only. So this is the topic that these are the points that I wanted to
Yeah.
add.
I want to add something else as well. As Ria rightly pointed out, job expectation. Coming to psychology, there can be males who are endogenous, who actually merge the lines between masculinity and femininity, right? And how difficult it is for them. I'll tell you the difficulty level that they go through, especially in the profession of psychology. Since I am in this profession, I can say about this. There are only 9-10 colleges in Delhi University for psychology, and out of that, only 3 colleges or 2 colleges are co-ed, who actually give men the chance to become a psychologist. So there's a disparity, like people who are actually emotional, men who are emotional and want to cultivate that part of themselves, they do not actually get a place in society. So it is also forcing them in a way that you have to be a certain way. And that's where this issue that society is trying to force us or mold us in a particular way. And since we are trying to be molded, females and males both are being molded, it will actually, and we have these, so usually thinking and feeling, thinking is associated with men, and feeling is associated with women. And this is not the right way, because both men and women are capable of these things. The proportion and the intensity can differ, but both are capable. And that's why it becomes important to see the struggle of men and women both, because they go in round and round. If one is getting affected, for example, in psychology, there are more women, and the men do not get a place, so for them getting job security gets difficult when it comes to psychology. And there are so many different professions. They can become a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. This is one example. There are many examples that people will be facing. There are no sisters or nurse usually. They're different. So it also says that we are saying in a way that nurturing, caring are not something that men have. But I'll tell you, anyone who ever thinks that these attributes are not associated with men, there's a series on Netflix called Babies. You should definitely watch it, because in that series you will get to know that even motherhood is a choice, and men can be, because even gay men, they have children, they have babies. So, and one of them, their amygdala and different parts of brain get activated just the way a mother's part will get activated. So it is not that we do not have a choice, it's just we are not really told that we have a choice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Thank you so much, you both. So the next question that we have for today is that how toxic masculinity affects the society as a
Okay.
whole.
Yeah, I would like to elaborate on that. So, as we have discussed it before, that there exists a power struggle between the two genders. The effort to maintain this hierarchy often goes a step ahead, which in turn become toxic for the other. When we begin to understand toxic masculinity, there occurs a need to understand that norms, behaviors associated with them, is to display the superiority of this particular gender. They are conditioned into these attributes in such a way that not conforming to these norms will not only lead to scrutiny but can also outcast them from own social groups or cliques. Hence, the option of blurring the boundaries is often eliminated by the fear instilled in them by their own gender members. So, in order to establish the power hierarchy and having a sense of superiority over the others, men conform to the traditional attributes of masculinity, engage in behavior that tend to have negative impact a lot on the society as well as on the heterosexual men themselves. So I would like to elaborate on these aspects further. First, it contributes to gender inequality, which is disadvantageous to women, while on the other hand, it privileges men. It harms women as it allows the normalization of normative behavior of men that are harmful for women, such as violence and abuse. I'll take up an example of this movie Thappad. The movie, so the scene where Tapsi actually gets slapped. I would like you guys to think, if you can recall, whoever has watched the movie, what was the reaction of the people around them? People didn't say that he did something wrong. People were actually defending him. People somehow were normalizing his behavior. They said that he was stressed, he was tensed, he lost his particular job, he was drunk, and that's why he took this step. So this is something that happened in many households. These actions are often being so normalized that it becomes difficult to actually tell them and make them take stand on what the action that they have taken. They don't take responsibility of their own actions, and it has been become normalized to them. While in majority cases, women disregard that slap because it is pretty much normalized. In that movie itself, Tapsi actually verbalized that. Probably she verbalized that, and initially even I had this view that okay, but the issue wasn't that one slap. The issue was the normalization, the okay attitude, the going away with many action that he did that he was unaccountable. And that was the issue, that usually in our society men can go away with their actions, whereas women has to live with it. So this is one of the reason which I believe. And not only women themselves, as we have discussed before, toxic masculinity is harmful for men. It says that men must be dominating, must be aggressive, must devoid himself of any emotion. If the men try to go away with these traits, their manhood comes into the question. And if I would like to elaborate on this point through my own personal experience. So I had a family function within my home. There was my brother's wedding. So it was like a classic system that the men were enjoying their drinks on the roof while the women were enjoying their music and festivities downstairs, while constantly catering to the needs of the men and taking care of the household itself. So while majority of my brothers, majority of my cousin and everyone was upstairs, one of them decided to stay downstairs and help me out with the system. And the second thing, he enjoys music. He enjoys getting part in those festivities. He believed that a wedding is a place where you must get engaged. You're not supposed to just go upstairs and drink. And he's somebody who is against all those toxic behaviors. So he decided to stay downstairs and help. So while he was playing some music instrument, I heard a woman saying to her grandsons that do one thing, go upstairs and sit with your father. And I asked that woman, what's the issue? She was like, अगर ये यहाँ रहेगा तो इसके जैसे बन जाएंगे. And I was like shocked because the woman was more happy to send her grandsons towards the people who were actually consuming alcohol and toxic substances rather than letting them sit in a healthy environment. So the boy who was actually who was sensitive, who was emotional, who was taking care of everyone, who was sensible enough to actually understand that women also need to enjoy, who was helping everyone entertain also, he was keeping everyone happy. His manhood came into question. They were saying the woman said that probably he's homosexual, probably he's interested in men. That's why he's sitting in women. And I don't understand. Just because a modern man is logical enough in his thinking, he's logical enough in rather than letting the attributes being enforced on him, he wants to rationally think about them and accept it if he feels right only then he is being questioned by the society. So it is like they want to restrict them in a particular role, and this is the words of a woman. Even the women have been conformed to these societal norms in such a way that they also speak it. When I asked her, then she began to realize, okay, yeah, she was wrong. It is like an instinctual thing that comes up. And the third place, I would like to believe that it is difficult for homosexual men for sure. As we have already discussed, that central symbol of ranking of masculinity come from hierarchy of masculinity, which exists largely as dichotomy of homosexual and heterosexual. So often men who don't conform to these gender roles and have same-sex orientation, they are seen as weak. They are seen as they are physically weak, that they are incapable to do the tasks that a man can do, and hence they are often scrutinized, beaten up, verbal abuses are there. So it becomes difficult for everyone around us. Okay, so further I would like Prakriti to take upon that.
Yeah, so I can rightly see. So it's not, as Ia mentioned, it's not just men who help us in like in society, help keep up with the toxic masculinity. It is the women as well, and it is everyone. Like everyone has to be a part of it, or else things will not be up. And also law. So I will talk about law. Just giving an example. So when it comes to male rape, there's no law around it. There is no one who can claim that uh, males do not get raped. According to our law, males actually do not get raped because there is no male law to prove that. And when it comes to alumni, like if a woman takes divorce from men, they have to give uh, their property or sometimes the money to the women. But what if the women is earning more? Then that is not talked about. So there are disparity when it comes to law, the education, and this all also affects men, right? And I want to there's this thing when it comes to psychology that we talk about relationships. I am talking about relationships. Just imagine. I want all of you to imagine there are 10 glasses and one jug full of water, right? I'll tell you why I'm saying this. 10 glasses, one jug full of water, and you just pour water in the four cups, equal water in these four cups. If I just break these two cups, two glasses, how much water will you be left with? You will be left with 50% of water, right? And how much will it affect you? If 50% is lost, it will affect you mostly, like it will affect you a lot. But just now imagine there are 10 glasses, and now you are pouring water in all the glasses. The intensity level of water can be less or more depending on you. And now two glasses are broken, and now how much will it affect you? 10%, 20%, right? This is how men feel. Like for men, since they are not able to share their emotions, communicate their emotions, these things are not allowed. Even when they try, as a boy, when they cry, they are said that you can't cry. When as a man, they communicate that I am feeling this way, they can't communicate. That's why they find it difficult even to take help. This is how men feel. Like they have poured, when they share, they have poured their emotions in two or three people. When these people leave their life, it affects them a lot. Not saying that women do not get affected. And this is proven by studies that when a breakup happens or a loss happens, men find it very difficult to get over it. And psychologically and from the mental point of view, it takes men more time to get over breakup or loss compared to women, because they are not able to articulate their emotions, and they can just share with one or two people. That's why it is important for men also, and in our society, for all of us to realize that we need to give men the space to share. And that's where women come in as well. Like for example, I've seen a lot of women in the sessions communicating this, that when their uh, partner is overtly caring or nurturing, it also scares them, because they are not familiar with this kind of masculinity, this kind of male. So we as women also need to realize that we are also not very familiar with this kind of thing, and all these things are somewhere in us. And you need to start realizing the and become aware of how we are we are so in these things are interwoven in our own skin, right? So yeah.
Thank you so much, Prakriti and Ria. Now, I would really like if you both could throw some light on the current locker room situation in light of toxic masculinity. So, on to you.
Yeah, sure. So, too often it happens that to find a place, to find a clique, to find a group, there's a forceful conformity. And one of such is the locker room controversy. Most of us, we are aware of it. And if somebody is not, kindly mention in the comments so that we can elaborate on it later. But if we see in regular life, locker room Instagram group are just a more accessible version of the regular locker room talks, that the main locker room talks that we have often seen in the movies, and that actually exist in the normal life also, that majority of might know. When we see locker rooms at a place where men being in their utmost self and to emphasize their masculinity often boast about how masculine they are, reach to a level where it crosses some line, as happened in particular chat group. In this particular chat group, if we watch this from an outsider's perspective, with the lens of patriarchy, it can be normalized under men will be men, and that they are just sharing and they're not doing anything. If we like to further talk about it, they are not doing anything. I agree. Okay. They haven't done anything. They are just talking. They are not doing anything. But here comes the yet. They haven't done anything yet. They haven't harmed anyone physically yet. But constant conversation, constant objectifying normalizes this act. When one day these are mere memes, a few days later they can turn into actions such as shaming women, humiliation, blackmailing, and even death threats, which actually has happened. That initially this group might have started just as a meme sharing group, but it did lead to this level that they started to humiliate women. They started to blackmail them that if they go to the police, if they go file complaint, then they'll gonna kill them or rape them, and there were many brutal ways how they were telling, brutal ways that they were using in order to stop the women to go again, to go to the authorities. So what make it okay for them to talk about it? Because these act does not have any repercussions. Whenever you take a guy's phone, we are well aware where to look and where not to look. Although it is a normal ethics and it is a normal etiquette that whenever you took someone's phone, you don't go through their personal messages or gallery. But in case of men, in case of boys, we are much more aware that yes, we are not supposed to, because we are somehow unconsciously aware that what we can find in those phones. And it has normalized with time, because none of us have actually raised a point towards that. Because at that point, I guess we have so become used to it that thing, it never crossed our mind that we need to quit it, because it was to a certain level. This time is that they cross the level. They actually begin to reach, actually raise their level to the extent that they begin to humiliate women. They begin to harm them while talking to them. And I'm not saying that having those group is okay, but I'm raising the point that till now, why was it okay? So while talking about such group, I agree that although there are some moralistic men that can be a part, but they don't actually engage in such discussion. So I got to know from an external source that there was actually few people who didn't comment on it. They didn't like anything. They were just part of the group. So there can be multiple reasons for such, as fear, not conforming to their peer groups, and hence they can be scrutinized, they can seem weak, and they can be thrown out of that group. But this silence is something that has actually made men weaker with time than being powerful. Keeping quiet creates trouble within, with the effort to seem masculine and portray power while dominating the supposed weaker is harmful for the society as a whole. So I'm aware of the case in which the boy was molested as a child. He was a very weak looking boy, as the society's attributes are associated. He never discussed it with anyone, he never let it out, he always kept it quiet. So what happened as he grew up, he made himself as the symbol of alpha male. He he became very muscular, he tried to be very dominant, but still if you talk to them, he had difficulty to express emotion. While talking to him, sadly he had lost his brother a few years back. he didn't have he didn't have that ability to actually process or express his emotion. He has always stayed so quiet with his own misery that it became difficult for him to later talk about it. So this is what happened, that the quietness often comes with a turmoil within. So further, I would like to know Prakriti's point on this.
Sure. Since we are running a short of time, so I will be a bit quick. So sure, like there's a lot that I want to add. This patriarchal society has normalized rape culture and toxic masculinity in a way that children from well-educated families can unapologetically talk about raping women and dismiss as boys talk. It is important to start recognize all this, and not only when something extreme happens, but before that, as Ria also said, we all know of boys claiming that they have had sex with so many girls and boasting about it. We all have, if we just look back. Also, women are also subjected to patriarchal conditioning that we have been talking about, who have brought down other women, who have slut shamed other women by calling them names, the women who have spread rumors about other women, the women who have defended men by making excuses for them, the women who have glorified this behavior, like Ria also mentioned that a mother was trying to do that. um, and there is like the women who have glorified this behavior, who have encouraged this behavior. The internalized misogyny goes beyond gender, actually. It is not just one gender. uh, the women who defending the locker room incident by saying that women also objectify men, to that my answer will be that two wrongs do not make a right. You are only resorting to victim blaming, yet again shifting from the main issue here. It is important to recognize and stop this kind of behavior in infancy, because just think about the abusive language used in India. It is it is not a representative represent it is a representation of our thinking and imaginative violence toward women, and how this violence hurts a man ego. So like we use a lot of the abusive language which is used, it is directed towards women, and indirectly also directed towards insulting a man's ego, because it is tied with the honor of women. That's why a lot of acid attacks, honor killing, abuse, all these are connected. There is a spiral that things go into. After saying all this, like it is important that we also realize how to tackle this. Since we have been talking about these issues, it is important to realize how we can actually start tackling these as well.
Uh, so Ria, would you like to like throw some light on how to tackle all this?
Yeah, sure. So I can read all the comments, that there are many comments where people like to know that how can we tackle with this problem? How can we deal with this problem? So yeah, we actually have discussed, me and Prakriti, we were discussing the other day that how actually if you are shedding light upon a problem, there should be ways also how to tackle it. So one of the way is that it is the most crucial and important step is that acceptance of the issue that exists. Until or unless people will recognize that toxic masculinity exists and it is problematic, and that the effort need to be made to tackle it, a change cannot be made. So the first step involved in familiarizing with the issue and how it is impacting us, as that we are doing right now. It is important to understand that it is not an attack over men, rather it is a way to save both society and men themselves. So in this webinar, I have constantly emphasized that it is not an attack on a man. Although in some way it might seem, because as a woman, we all have experienced something, the probably unconscious part of me might be able to elaborate on that point, but consciously we are trying to say that it is not. It is in reality, it is not an attack to them. Rather, it is just a way to save them as well as to save ourselves. To start the journey to start the journey of self-awareness and start mapping the pattern through which toxic masculinity. For example, in a psychology also, when we are taking a counseling session, we can't help a person until unless that person accepts that he has an issue. You can force somebody to change. You can help person only if they recognize the issue within them. And apart from this, just claiming the toxic masculinity won't be helpful. Second thing is we need to make them aware of the healthy masculinity as well. A healthy space is needed for men in the society where it is okay to process emotion and express them without the fear of being scrutinized for that, where it is okay for them to choose their role in the family rather than blindly forcing roles on them. For example, I'll take case of my own family. In my family, I don't like to cook, whereas my brother had recently discovered his passion during quarantine. So my parents didn't say that you are restricted to only this role and you can't do anything else. They understand that since I'm not interested in that particular role and he is, they didn't actually come in across. It is like it is your choice. If you want to explore something, if you don't want to explore something, it's up to you. So this is what we need to understand, that we need to understand that space must be provided for them to choose their own role. The normative idea about masculinity and femininity is something that has been carried forward through ages. With the changes in time, these attributes, which at some point can be seen as crucial and even needed for survival, are no longer needed. We force men and women into specific molds of norms from past, and no longer these circumstances actually exist in today's time because we live in a modern world. We do not have the same environment, same context that we used to have earlier. So we don't have similar outlets towards things. So we need to make changes in our upbringing also, and we need to bring out changes how we see things also. Hence these attributes are still carried out. Men are conditioned to attribute without any outlet source. While some can become successful in achieving this, those who fail often become frustrated and use wrong means to release their frustration. And the third point that I believe that how it can be is that provide them to process emotion. Instead of telling guys to buckle up and stop being a girl, there is a need that men are provided with emotional language and tool that has been taken away from them since long. A voice needed to be given them so that they can verbally express their emotion rather than their actions. And the third is that creating gender equality. So often it is seen that the concept of men and women. So not being men means that you have women attribute. Men is associated with strength, whereas the women is associating with weakness. So not being men means that you're weakness. So until and unless both the gender are brought to an equal level, until unless that no weaker gender exists, this will be difficult. While men are suffering, women are the one who are being outlet of this suffering in some way or the other. With the acceptance of toxic norms associated with men, need has occurred to recognize norms that have limited women in their growth as well. It is not only men who has been limited, women have also limited because of the particular attributes that the society associate and force them to be. The idea of blurring the division of these attributes need to be accepted. And the society, I guess, in this modern time is actually ready. If we see the COVID, the change that COVID has bring out, I have seen men cooking, I have seen men cleaning, I have seen men actually accepting that how it is difficult to take care of home also. So I believe that this COVID has actually good implications. People are learning that it is not only difficult to go to work and earn, but taking care of house is also equally difficult, and it should be a job for both of them rather than of one person alone. So I would like to ask Prakriti if she like to add some more points.
Yes, sure. Those points were really good, and I hope all of you have noted that down. And talking about, so I would start by the very first thing that happens. First, as a psychologist, I always say this thing to all the clients that I talk to and all the people that I meet, that identify the pattern. Since we all know that these things are so interwoven in us, that it is important that we start identifying where are we being as women, as men, as parents, or as an outlooker, as an onlooker as well, we are being sexist, or we are encouraging this kind of behavior, or we are accepting this kind of behavior. It is it is often my experience that people are not really aware of this, as Ria pointed out, that it is important that we become aware of this. And the way you go about it has to be empathy, because if you're going to shout at the other person that what you're doing is wrong, then they will be really defensive. And if they're defensive, they're guarded, there's no way that you can work through it. You have to be polite, you have to go through that, and that happens when you start understanding them. That doesn't really mean that you have to take the abuse. I'm not trying to say that at all. There's a way that you are able to establish your boundaries and still able to help the person. And if you're not able to help, recommend a professional, because it is not, women have to realize that this, it has been circulated for a very long time. Women have to realize that they are not the correction house for men. That has to be
Exactly.
realized. Yeah. And I remember doing this thing with young children, gender sensitization. So what I did, I had asked these groups of boys to sit and group of girls to sit. These were 11 to 10, 11, 12-year boys and girls, and they started sharing their experiences of gender, how they experience it. Girls shared that they stand on their terrace, and the boys around them, they say names, and one of the girls started crying, and then one of the boys shared that how his mother, she was passing by and a boy harassed her, and they all were able to recognize that it also affects them. So that gender sensitization has to be there, and for that to happen, what our generation can do, this coming generation, you can start mapping how it is affecting you, and then you can start, like, you will have you will become teachers, you will become professors, you will become professionals in different fields. You can start helping these people, right? So this is where you can bring change. And there are other ways, like not emphasizing on the gender roles, being a bit fluid. And by bit I mean dheere dheere, slowly you start being more and more fluid, by being and giving that leeway to be non-conformist, that a child who is 2 years 3 years old doesn't really have to play with the dolls only. And if he's playing with the dolls doesn't mean that he's gay. And even if he's gay, just accept him, because that is even if you see in animal kingdom, gays, homosexuality has always existed, even in past. It's just we are so scared of homosexuality, that a lot of parents and a lot of people are so scared of homosexuality that you're driving yourself away from a part of your being. You're totally okay with driving your feeling part or your emotions or your communication away, because I communicate this with a lot of boys and a lot of young kids, even with girls, that if you are facing a lot of anger issues, there's something that you need to work in the domain of communication. Because if I can communicate it using my mouth, I do not have to communicate it using my hands, for sure. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is one thing that people can work on. And next, like I've written the points, next is bring change in the education system. By this, I do not mean just in writing, but in practice as well. So the concept, like, probably first can be that introduce the private parts, name of the private parts in the starting as well, like first class, second class, because Ria and me were discussing that there are instances. Ria, would you like to discuss that instance where child did not know
Yeah,
the
yeah,
name and how
yeah,
it,
surely.
yeah.
So there was this instance that I came across. This is the instance of a 5 or 6 year old boy and a 2 year old girl. So what happened is that this boy, sometime when he goes to his family house, he used to meet this girl. The girl is the daughter of a house help. So what they did is they used to play around. He used to kiss her on the cheek, and the whole place seemed very innocent to us because children don't have that negative emotion or phallus with it. So it seemed pretty much innocent. So there were number of instances that had happened. One of such instance was that once both the kids get locked in a room, And the parents got scared that what happened, that you're in a room, what happened, that you're not supposed to be in a room, otherwise you'll get locked, we have to break the door, that kind of a thing that come up. However, one day what happened, that the boy was in the washroom and he had a girl along with him, and he was using his penis, and he was showing it to her. So after understanding the whole scenario, what was the conclusion was that probably the boy has seen his parents engage in a moment, and he could not exactly name it. He didn't know how to process it. So he himself began to explore it. But if you see a 5-year-old boy, he was intelligent enough to know that it was a hush topic, it was a taboo topic. And something like that need to be explored within the room, within the four walls. So children do exist. We need to tell them, because if it is not explored properly, if the child is not told what is right, what is wrong, and he is not even aware of his own action, that we can't blame him at this early age. It is the parents, it is the society. I don't believe it is limited to parents alone. Even in the movies, that the sex scene that come up, child might be curious to understand what it exactly is. So at young age, we are not exactly providing them sex education, rather we just want them to be familiar with their own body, that what is a good touch, what is a bad touch, what areas are restricted by others and what areas are just yours, and how you need to protect it, and we need to provide them language to actually communicate it. The girl is just 2 year old, and if we get to know about it, I don't think she will be remembering it. But what if she does? So all this scenario, only one person does not get harm in it, the other person too. So in this scenario, if we try to understand, is a 5 year old really a molester? This was the question that I had in my mind. But
Yeah.
exactly no, but this was something that immediately pops up, that no, you're wrong. Immediately, as soon as I heard the story, I was mad. I was very angry that now the 5 year olds are like this. But if you process it, it's not his fault in particular. It is like we as a society, we as a parents, we as the communicators have failed to provide him that language to explore.
Yeah, so like shedding light on that. So what happens a lot of time, boys, like I have worked in boys shelter home and girls shelter home, and it has been my experience that boys get abused themselves a lot, and particularly boys who have feminine characteristics, they get abused a lot. And at times their curiosity is a reason for the abuse. Like a boy shared this experience that he so one of the caretaker showed him a video or a movie, American something, I do not really remember the name. He showed him the video, and this boy, since he was curious about knowing about sex and how things are, he liked the video. But as a kid, as a person from outside, if I see it, that was abuse,
Yeah.
that was not consented, like the child did not know. So, and this is often the experience that girls talk a lot about emotions and boys talk a lot about sexuality, and there is an imbalance in both the sides, because women do not have the language to talk about sexuality, men do not have the language to talk about emotions, and both of them overcompensate by sharing what they know. So there has to be not just giving men the language to talk about emotion, also empowering women to talk about sexuality, because they are also sexual beings. So maintaining the balance from both the sides. So it is not just toxic masculinity, it's also in some way the toxic femininity as well, which is not talked about, since women are the, and because see, when we talk about relationship, we also talk about this fact that two people are in relationship, one is going through abuse and one who is taking abuse is also in somewhat a position that why are you taking abuse, what has happened to you that you are taking abuse. That is also needs to be talked about, because when it comes to families, women are so selfless and they are doing all the work, and they're not talking about abuse. So it is also important that we start talking about both the sides, and not say that men do not go through abuse and women go through abuse a lot. Both of them are going through abuse, and it is affecting their mental health equally, since men men do not have access or can't access these things, it is important that we start telling them that it is okay for you to access these resources, talk to mental health professionals, talk to families, and we as people have to be receptive towards it. And we can start bringing these changes by changing our expectations and reactions when a male is sharing things. Like, I will tell you why I'm saying this. Have you heard yourself say this, that it is okay for men to also cry? But you must have not heard yourself say this, it is okay for women to cry. Why don't we say that it is okay for women to cry? Because it is already okay. And we have to say it is okay for men to cry because it is not okay. We have to make it okay. So in the terms that you're using, we can see what is happening, right? And also break the cycle of abuse from generation to generation. There is a cycle of abuse that is going on, that men are of certain ways, women are of certain way. And from research and experiments, we can see that if a generation is made to grow up in a certain way, they will obviously, with time, their neurons and some part of the brain will get stronger, and they will start attributing to those parts of being. Because for so many generations I have been in such a way, then obviously, like, if for generations my parents have been teachers or professors or somewhere in the education system, then my education background or my language or some things like this will be strong. So we have to break this from generation to generation. And since I know a lot of young people have joined us, this is how we start doing it. Start mapping your behavior. What are your patterns? Start speaking up. So I always tell parents when I interact with them, you can't expect your child to just come up one day and tell you that I've gone through abuse. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. What can happen is that you talk to your child every day. How was your day? What did you do? A small chit chat. The child will know that they can share with you. That's how we should be with people around us. Like, chit chat with them. Slowly speak up your opinions. Slowly speak up that this is wrong, this is right. And it is very important that I will give you, so this is the last thing I'm saying. I'll give you an example. Why is it important to choose your company wisely? I'll give you this example. This is a natural example. For example, imagine you are a rock. All of us, we are rocks, and we are solid with our belief that I do not believe that men, there should be sexism, there should be patriarchy. I do not believe it, but I stay with people who believe it. Okay, my choice of people is different. And just imagine there's a rock, you are a rock, and there's water being poured on you every day. With time, what will happen? The rock will erase. And, like, it will start losing layer, and layer. And the rock from this to it will be this much. And that's what happened with our beliefs as well. That I believe, so with time I'm staying with them, things get normalized. That's what happened in the locker room. Things got normalized. My beliefs that it is not okay to disrespect women, it is not okay, it's not okay. It became okay. So it is very important you choose your company wisely. We all are those rocks. And that's why things that we think should be watered and preserved, we need to be very careful about them. So yeah, this is it from my side.
Thank you so much, Prakriti and Riya. So during our session, we had like many questions, but our team believes that many of them have been answered. There's just this one question that we think needs a bit of discussion. So Umehani pointed out that there are two less men talking about toxic masculinity, and many a times only women talk about it. So can you comment on this, as in, does this really affect the entire concept? Like, women are the only ones who are talking about sensitive issues and men are not. So how do you think this affects the whole concept that we want to do this thing but it is not happening?
Personally, I would like to you can begin if you want.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. I really appreciate that question. That really does make one think. Like even I'm thinking at this point. So see, this is a very valid thing that she has said, that men are not talking about it, and that's why we need to make them talk. There's this language that they do not have, and we need to, and this can happen slowly. So don't hurry them, don't hurry this process. This will happen, and this will happen when we start talking about small issues. For example, Ria pointed it out, when this woman, she was trying to send the child upstairs in this atmosphere of drinks and everything, and this boy was who was engaging in the family event, he was being discouraged from that. So there is a need we start talking about these. When men talk about these things, that these like when you're watching movies, for example, Kabir Khan comes straight up to me that talk about these things. And honestly, in my experience, I have friends who really like this movie, and when I write reviews about these things, they also said that's just a movie. And a lot of the times I've seen that people unfriend these people as well. That's not how you go about it. Meet them. If you just say that these people are impossible and leave them, then there's no way we can work through it. You have to have this engagement with them. Engage. See, if you can slowly erode away because the water is being poured on you, this person can also build, right? The others process can also happen, that this person can build if you are again and again questioning this thing. Yeah, this is happening. And also, I will tell you one technique that usually I use in sessions and is recommended. Question. Not that you're giving answer, just question. Like, this is, see, I see it like this. Like, this is what I saw. What is your comment on this? Because when a person has to question, and there's also another technique. Since I'm working with lawyers, so this is one technique that I used, that tell them to take the argument of the other side. Just say, like, as a game, that I am on the pro side, like I am taking the side of the boy, that these should be talked about, and you be the girl, that okay, I am against this thing, ye nahi hona chahiye. And see what argument they're coming up with, because then your mind has to think through it, that why these things are happening. So these things, question and try to like find ways to engage with them through games and make it playful, so that slowly they are also able to build upon these things, right? This is from my side. Ria, you want to add something?
Yeah, a little. I believe that I agree that the concept has not been prevalently accepted, but it has started. For example, while we were exploring the topic ourselves, we came to know that there were number of ads, number of videos, number of comedy show where people were actually mentioning it. Although it was in the form of comic way, but there was also a serious topic that was raised. Because, and I understand that why it was taking in a comic way. Because if this topic seen as a attack to them, they won't be able to take it. That's why repeatedly while doing this webinar, we were repeating that it is not an attack, it is just a way to make them understand. Because if a person feels attacked, like Prakriti pointed out, they will be defensive, they are never going to accept it. Okay, so it's a slow process that we are going to do.
Thank you so much,
I
Prakriti
hope
and
that
Priya.
answers, and if doesn't, please let us
Oh,
know.
so I would like to thank you for this webinar today. We are really fortunate to have you in our team. And it was a really eye-opening session and was very informative personally to me, as I'm the one speaking right now. I would also like to thank you and all of our audience for joining us today. And we are really happy to have you as an audience base and our speakers. So this was a beginning of our webinar series. We will be soon releasing more webinars, for which the link will be on our social media accounts, which we will be soon sending on the WhatsApp group. We will also send you the links to the profiles of Prakriti and Ria, and we are
So
going
I
to share
think
recording on YouTube channel. So please subscribe to it. I guess someone wanted to
to
add
have the
something.
audience. So, thank you everyone for joining us. It was lovely having all of you here, and thanks for having us here. And if anyone wants to connect with us, we will be sending our links, and you can connect with us on like Instagram or LinkedIn. So thank you.
So thank
Yes,
you, everyone. Yeah, I
please.
would like to add. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So it's a topic little political and little fiery, but I believe that the audience base was so understanding that it felt very we felt very comfortable in communicating our own ideas. So it felt nice, and yeah, as our information will be shared, we are happy to help you anyway, whatever topics. Even if you have issue regarding this particular topic also, we're happy to elaborate on that.
And I guess if we are going to share this to our YouTube channel, which we are going to do very soon, then you guys can ask questions from Prakriti and Riya, and they will be really happy to help
Surely,
you.
surely will be available.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Goodbye.